Some really, really sad news coming out of the Montreal Canadiens camp today as we hear that one-time top 5 prospect Mattias Norlinder is heading back to Sweden, and it doesn't sound like the Habs plan to sign him next year at all. We'll be diving into his fall from grace, plus some recent prospect rankings for the Montreal Canadiens leave us a little bit puzzled, so we're going to share what our thoughts are on all that on this edition of Habs Digest. And as we get into this first topic about Mattias Norlinder, a quick reminder, every time I ask you guys to subscribe, you do. There's thousands of you who haven't done it. If you could do it now, just click the button. We'd really appreciate it. Jesse, Mattias Norlinder, at one point, one of the top prospects in the Habs system. According to Grant McCagg, Norlinder has a year left on his deal, but he played in an SHL Swedish Hockey League exhibition game the other day. He won't be back in Laval, and don't look for the Canadiens to re-sign him. Of course, he spent the last couple seasons with Laval. Once considered a top 5 prospect in the system, he never adjusted to the North American ranks and was passed by others. And I was like, was he ever really considered a top 5 guy in the Habs system? Well, yes. The top 25 under 25 lists have been happening for the past number of weeks now. And if we go back to 2021, they do this every year. He was ranked number 4. He's a left-handed defenseman. He was ranked above guys like Cayden, Guhle. At one point, Jesse, this was our future. There were people saying, oh, it's Mattias Norlinder. He's going to be our defenseman of the future. And it's just this fall from grace is kind of unprecedented and a little bit sad.
And it's just 2 years ago. It's really not long ago at all, right? But as we've seen, Kent Hughes kind of taking on this team, so many, prospects, a little bit better drafting. And before you know it, he's just completely fell off the cliff on the depth chart. And of course, I remember that myself, right? Reading these articles and being very highly touted as an intelligent, offensively gifted defenseman. Obviously, we know so many great defensemen do come from Sweden. Mm-hmm. So he just had so many great things kind of going for him, right? It seemed like such a great fill. Again, that was a time where we were really looking for that offense on the back end, and he seemed to kind of be a player that could possibly fill that gap for us. But yeah, with all the skill in the world, it just seems like it wasn't really able to translate onto the North American ice. And obviously, he's not the first one, right? But I would have to say that, maybe even more so, it's just the fact that we have so many other prospects kind of coming in as well, and that they were able to really seize those opportunities a little bit more. So like a player that kind of comes to mind that was able to really grab their opportunity is Arber Xhekaj.
Yeah.
Just at training camp that Mattias Norlinder was at, right? Just were these players just really standing out. So, we definitely wish him all the best in his pro hockey career as that continues in Europe.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still a chance an NHL team might take a shot on him because, again, not every NHL player is NHL ready by the time they're, how old is he, 22, 23? Like, he's not that old yet still. And not every prospect has it put together, especially when they come over from Europe at this age. So maybe heading back to the SHL might help him a bit. And maybe if he has a big season, Montreal might be interested in re-signing him. But I just feel like Montreal's exhausted all their efforts with Mattias Norlinder. If he goes to another team and finds success, sure, but it is a little bit sad to see one of our former top prospects fall off like this. And yeah, I mean, you're very right, Jesse, especially with a guy like Xhekaj who was undrafted, just came into training camp, and to beat out Norlinder, you gotta wonder if that's gonna maybe just make him a little more upset or set a fire under him. And you gotta hope, like you said, we wish the best for him. And if the Habs decide not to re-sign him, that's it. We'll have to see. But yeah, a kind of a crazy update. But let's move on to the next topic. And we're going to stick with some young guys in the Habs organization. We're going to get into some prospect rankings. Now, there's a few that have come out. NHL.com and NHL Network. And we're going to focus first on NHL.com. They just ranked the Habs' top 5 prospects in their system. Now, they still consider Slafkovsky a prospect. Fair enough. They have him at number 1. David Reinbacher at 2. Lane Hutson at 3. Beck at 4. And Joshua Watt at 5. Funny thing about this, the guy who made this list, his name is Sean Farrell. And he didn't rank Sean Farrell in the Habs' top 5 prospects. What a shame. Jesse, I want to get your opinion. When you saw this list, what was the first thing that you realized? I think I would change that, or do you think this is a solid list altogether?
It's pretty solid. It definitely is. In my opinion, just kind of thinking about it, though, I would have to put Lane Hutson and Juraj Slafkovsky tied at number 1. Like, obviously, we've seen what Lane's been doing of late. It's just been absolutely ridiculous, the amount of skill, the amount of game-breaking talent that he has. But at the same time, what I like about this list, and in my own thoughts, I think that we shouldn't forget about all the skill that Juraj Slafkovsky has as well. Because I think a lot of analysts, a a lot of people that spend a lot of time looking at prospects, they know that he still has a lot in the tank. He's focusing on the right things, right, for next year and cardio, which I feel is going to be fundamental. It's a speed game.
Mm-hmm.
He's focusing on his cardio, kind of getting down on a little bit of the weight. Like when you have good cardio in the NHL, right, it's just going to give him the ability to do what he wants on the ice, right? Just to use that skill, all that potential. So I think he's really focusing in the right ways. And I do see a world next year where he's tearing it up from the beginning of the season. I absolutely believe that's possible. Why? Because he has all the skill in the world and he's focused on the right things this offseason. He's been very systematic. I think the Habs have been doing a great job of working with him in that way. So yeah, I would have probably Slaf and Lane, two game-breaking talents. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? They both really pan out as amazing players, which they totally could. And then from there, yeah, I'd probably have Reinbacher at 3, and then Mailloux 4, and then Roy 5. You know, Mailloux, Roy, maybe interchangeable there a little bit, but I mean, Mailloux's given us every reason to believe that he's a phenomenal player. I really like the work ethic and also the skill that Joshua Roy has as well. I think that his size could be a good complement as well with us. So those are my initial thoughts. What are you thinking about this, Josh?
You know, I might take a controversial take. Let me just flash the list up there again. I think I'm going to stick with that same top 3, and hear me out, right? I know a lot of Habs fans are saying Lane Hutson should be number 1. You had Lane Hutson tied for number 1. I get it. However, he still hasn't played a pro game, right? He's still college. Reinbacher's been playing in a pro league, putting up crazy numbers. Slafkovsky's already in the NHL, was the number 1 pick for a reason. For me, just for now, even with Lane Hutson showing all of his insane offensive potential, I think Reinbacher's overall impact might end up being about the same, if not better, than Lane Hutson. And I think Slafkovsky will truly turn into an elite power forward. So I'm going to stick with the same top 3, but I will change my bottom couple. I'd actually swap the 2. I'm going to keep the same top 5 as them, but I'd put Joshua Watt number 4, Owen Beckett number 5. The only reason I do that is because I think Joshua Watt has just shown his ability to fit with pretty much any line mates, any team. His ability to make the smart play all the time is really there. My biggest concern with him is his foot speed, and that is something that definitely is concerning as you're moving up the ranks. We're really going to get a true test of it this year in the AHL, because in the Q, maybe it's not as evident, but he played with Bedard, and he looked fine. He didn't look out of place. You just hope that that will allow him to take that next step into the NHL, even with the maybe lackluster foot speed. So, but I think his skill is so amazing, and I still think Beck's going to be solid, but yeah, that's kind of my take. But I think we pretty much agree with the list all the same. It's not that bad. Thank you, Sean Farrell, who didn't rank yourself in the top 5. No, not that same one. But let's take a look at something a little bit further. Now, this is a little old at this point, but I don't know if you guys have seen this. So this is NHL Network. They ranked their top 50 prospects. And the only 2 Habs that were in the top 50 are David Reinbacher and Lane Hutson, with Reinbacher at 17. I think he was ranked like 8th in his own draft class on this list. And Lane Hutson at 26th, behind the likes of some guys like Marco Kasper, Eklund, Askarov, Nikishin, even Zach Benson. I mean, look, Jesse, at this point, it feels like every second day Lane Hutson's either getting ranked really high or ranked really low. Reinbacher, I'm maybe not as necessarily upset about, but I think Lane Hutson at 26, I think that is just, it's too low for what we've seen from him.
Again, yeah, and it's interesting to see Reinbacher ranked higher than Hutson, in my opinion. I would probably kind of reverse those rankings, probably still having Reinbacher still a little bit higher up there. But at the same time, it's really a team game, right? And for Lane Hutson to be effective, he needs a player like David Reinbacher to complement him, solid defensively, but then has a ton to offer offensively as well. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, David Reinbacher is going to be an amazing NHL player. I just feel like Hutson has that real star potential, that possible even Norris, kind of potential in the future of why I would probably just for that game breaking talent. Right. But like I was saying, right, these players kind of need each other to be successful. I believe that Lane Hutson would bring out the best in Reinbacher and vice versa. Right. So, I mean, we definitely have to take that into account when we're doing these type of lists.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting point you make. Like, Lane Hutson's ceiling is the best offensive defenseman in the NHL, but his floor, like, the worst he could end up being, he might barely crack the NHL, and maybe his size truly turns out to be an issue, right? I really doubt that, but, he's kind of very volatile, right? He could be one of the best on this list. He could be about at his position or even worse. Someone like Reinbacher is kind of different in the sense that he pretty much can't fail, right? He's one of those, it's very different. Hutson has a high ceiling and a low floor, whereas Reinbacher has a very high floor and a decent ceiling, right? Like, he could end up being a very solid first pairing defenseman for years to come, but at the very worst, he's going to be a playable, at least second pair defender, right? So it's very interesting, and it all depends on what you rank, right? What you value more in a defenseman. And I can understand why they maybe rank the list like this. And like you said, you'd have Hutson higher. I'd probably still have Reinbacher higher, but it's all depends on how you rank it. And this kind of stuff, before they even play in the NHL, is just sort of a fun exercise. And as we look back at that Norlinder ranking from earlier, these rankings are going to change so drastically in the next few years. We might look silly for these statements, but yeah, it's all a bit of fun. And yeah, share with us your opinions on all these lists in the comment section down below. That'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us at 10K. We're on the road to 10K. Don't know how long it'll take, but we hope it's very, very soon. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.